We're essentially out of the portal window, and most of the dust has settled. And we have a pretty good idea of who will be on UF's roster for the 2024 football season. At least the spring game, anyway, right? So let's take a look at what the depth chart looks like for the season. Now, obviously, this is going to change a lot of times between now in January and spring and fall practice and then opening night versus Miami. But here is how it would shake out if today were game day. Let's look at our offensive skills players first. Obviously, Graham Mertz is returning at quarterback, and he's looking to build on last season. Historically, transfer quarterbacks year two make a big jump in production. Think about Hendon Hooker, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Joe Burrow, just to name a few, right? And man, that's kind of got to get Gator fans excited. Graham Mertz had a pretty serviceable season last year. Graham Mertz was good. I think he exceeded expectations, not only for Gator fans, but for sure exceeded expectations nationally. He is going to be backed up by none other than the number one quarterback and number 3 overall player in the 2024 recruiting cycle, DJ Lagway. Of course, everybody is super excited. He's on campus. He moved in. He's the future, right? And as much as we love Graham Mertz, and we do, Gator Nation would love to see DJ Lagway on that field with a few packages of his own, kind of keep the defense guessing, see what he can do. I think a lot about Chris Leak and Tim Tebow's freshman year. And I'm not saying, that Graham Mertz is Chris Leak or that DJ Lagway is Tim Tebow, but giving a change of pace, right? Letting a young, really highly rated guy get his feet wet in the SEC. A really nice change of pace, not only like for the team, of course, but also a great way to gain some experience without the pressure of being a starting quarterback in the SEC. This is situation that I am super excited to watch this upcoming year. I think that Graham Mertz is a really strong leader. I think he's going to continue to progress. He did well last season, and that's a really good person for DJ Lagway to learn under. So excited to watch that. And then, running back. We may have lost one to the bad guys in the transfer portal, but we are still loaded at running back. Montrell Johnson has been the backbone of this running game, consistently producing every single year. And also, y'all, he can block. Cam Carroll got injured over the summer, but he showed flashes of electric playmaking ability. It's going to be exciting to see what he can do in his 7th year of eligibility. You heard that right, 7th year of eligibility. And Treon Webb, guys, I'm psyched to see Treon Webb. He got minimal playing time last season, but that's because he's sitting behind Johnson and ETN, but he made good use of the time that he had. I can't wait to see what he does this season. He may even push for a starting role. At the very least, he's going to pick up a whole bunch of carries with ETN being gone. So that is a position that Florida really has some serious strength there. Wide receiver, there is a lot of youth in this wide receiver room. We know what Trey Wilson can do. We saw it last year. He is electric. He's going to be the cornerstone of this passing attack in 2024. He is the real deal. I'm really also excited to see Chimere DK. He was a wide receiver from Wisconsin, so Graham Mertz is very familiar with him. One of his favorite targets 2 seasons ago, where DK had his best season from his time at Wisconsin. I'm interested to see what the two can do together in orange and blue. I would assume that him being here is a large part due to his relationship with Mertz. So that's kind of exciting, right? It's nice now that Pearsall has moved on to the NFL for Graham Mertz to pick up another wide receiver that he already has a rapport with, that he's already comfortable with, because this is a lot of fresh young faces in the wide receiver room. But despite how unproven this room is, the staff has recruited so well, and Billy Gonzalez is one of the best developers of wide receiver talent in the game right now. And I say right now, but truly has been for the last 20 years. Think about some of the names that he has put in the NFL. So I don't think that wide receiver is a group that we need to be particularly worried about, even though there's going to be a lot of fresh, young faces there, right? We're going to see some of Aiden Mizell. We're going to see Andy Jean, Jure Hawkins. There's going to be, Marcus Burke is back. There's Khalil Jackson. There's a lot of talent in that room, even though it is arguably pretty unproven. Tight end, all familiar faces from last season. Boardingham and Hansen showed some flashes of, dare I say, excellence a few times in 2023, hoping that can translate to an entire season of high-level play. Florida will be better if they can get good tight end play. That is something that I think has kind of been missing from this offense, and that would be a huge key to taking a step forward. We've talked in previous videos on what Florida needs to improve on offensively, and one of the things we've talked about is they averaged just under 30 points a game last season. That average has got to improve if we're going to pick up more wins. Offensive line. Whew. Okay. So this was an area that Florida struggled a little bit last year, right? And our interior O-line was decent, but we had no depth at tackle and the play was subpar there. But this year, things may get a little inverted. The two incoming offensive tackle transfers were both Power 5 starters before. So that vastly raises the floor of that room, which is exciting, right? Between Manuel, Barber, and Crenshaw Dixon, we have 3 proven commodities at tackle. Obviously, only 2 are going to start, but having a reliable third guy to be a swing tackle makes this group a lot more resilient to injury, right? Which we sorely needed by the end of last season. Slaughter is returning at center, which is huge. Both of our starting guards transferred out. So George will likely slide inside, as that's kind of the position that he primarily played before coming to Florida. Hopefully this allows him to raise his level of play significantly over what we got out of him last season. Harris was really promising last season, so hopefully he is able to continue to grow into a starting role. And guys, that's going to have to happen quickly, right? There is a lot of youth behind the starting lineup. So we're going to need to see the dividends of the 2 offensive line coach system in developing some of these second-year players, other than Harris, right, to make them contributors fast, because our depth is going to need it. Move on to the other side of the ball. Let's talk about defensive line and linebackers. Justice Boone was a preseason fan favorite, and then he had that season-ending injury in camp. So he is somebody that I am super excited to see. I think Gator fans are really excited about. Last year, Tyreek Sapp was playing out of position a little bit in that F defensive end spot. Boone should raise that level of play there this season, and that's going to be a big help. Returning freshman All-SEC Kelby Collins is going to be pushing for reps. I want to see this guy on the field. Along with the number 1 defensive line and number 4 overall player in the country in 2024, LJ McCray, one of the mantelpieces of this recruiting class. I just don't see how you keep him off the field. We've done a lot of videos about him, talked a lot about LJ, and he's a man amongst boys. So I really think he's going to fight for some playing time there for sure, and potentially work his way into the starting lineup. At nose tackle, this is a group that played pretty well last season, with Jamari Lyons being kind of a nice surprise, pushing for playing time. However, there was certainly room for improvement. With the new and improved strength and conditioning regimen, though, and a new defensive line coach this season, I think we expect this group to take a step forward. And that's good, because we're going to need them to, right? Defensive tackle, Joey Slackman transferred in, and he likely pushes Caleb Banks, who I think would be considered, the incumbent, right? I think he pushes Caleb Banks to that second string, which immediately raises both the floor and the ceiling of the defensive line. With Slackman and Boone taking starting roles, or likely taking starting roles. This defensive line is getting automatic upgrades at multiple positions in 2024. Defensive line was one of the groups that I really had some issues with last season. They really struggled, and it's hard for your defense to be successful if your defensive line is not getting a push up the middle. And we really just didn't see that a lot. That makes the job so much harder on the linebackers and the DBs. So I think, again, combination of a new defensive line coach, but probably more importantly, an improvement in the strength and conditioning should help that. Talk about the jack position a little bit. Uman Mielen's departure means that this position group is very young and very unproven. However, TJ Searcy was freshman all SEC for a reason, right? And I expect him to step into that starting role next season with Pyburn backing him up. Gubbs is kind of a wild card. He's only played the position for 1 year. He played wide receiver and tight end his entire career prior to that, but he has all the physical tools. He may end up riding the bench, or he could take an exponential leap in his second year playing on the line. Inside linebacker, Shamar James is back, right? He's going to be healthy. The starting spot is his. That's no surprise. We saw how the defense just kind of fell apart last year after his injury. So keeping him on the field is going to be critical this season. The Gators are better when Shamar James is on the field. The other inside linebacker spot is a lot bigger of an unknown. Pup Howard has a lot of potential, and he comes in with experience. But we can't overlook the experience and the leadership of Derek Wingo, who enters his 6th year as a Gator. Manny Nunnery withdrew from the transfer portal for his final year of eligibility, so he'll be back. That was some senior leadership we thought we had lost, but we didn't. Jaden Robinson, he has kind of flown under the radar, but he was from the 2023 class, same as Howard, and actually, ironically, also committed to the Gamecocks at one point. He's going to be looking to contribute as well. I really think if you're looking at any of the groups on defense, linebacker is maybe the one that we should feel the best about. Which is interesting because they were not great last year. So kind of excited to see the linebacking core. Let's talk about cornerback. Marshall returning is huge for this pass defense. Listen, he was far from perfect last year, but he was still our best corner. And he brings leadership and experience. If Devin Moore can stay healthy, we've seen that he can be at least as good as Marshall, if not better, but he's got to stay healthy. He's got a propensity for injury. So maybe that means we see a lot more of Jakeem Jackson and Dijon Johnson in 2024. At that star and safety position, Jaden Hill and Miguel Mitchell struggled in coverage a lot of times last season. So hopefully the two transfers that we brought in will just raise that level of play here. Castell, of course, won the starting job from the start last year, was freshman All-SEC. So it would be great to see him take another step forward towards All-SEC play this year. Most recent transfer is Asa Turner, and I think he competes for a starting spot. He's coming from Washington. He's got a ton of experience. We got a lot of on-the-field leadership with him, so expect a lot out of him. All right, guys, what are your thoughts? Who do you think is going to make a big impact and jump into the starting lineup that maybe we weren't expecting? Let's chat about it down in the comments. I appreciate you all from tuning in, hanging out with me, and as always, go Gators.